I never imagined a single piece of paper could upend everything I thought I knew about my family. I am 25 years old and I have always been the quiet observer, the one who slipped into the background at our weekend barbecues while my cousins argued over football scores or bragged about their promotions. My name is Olivia Parker and I have lived in the same city ever since I left college last year. My life has been simple and predictable. I work as an assistant curator at a small art gallery downtown. I find comfort in routine. Usually I only saw my cousins last weekend when we gathered at my late Aunt Margaret's farmhouse for the reading of my uncle's will. It was a humid June afternoon and the sun filtered through the tall oaks shading the gravel driveway. Cousins gathered in folding chairs around a weathered picnic table. Some wore sundresses, others jeans and polos. Nobody looked comfortable. I had just arrived carrying a box of cucumber sandwiches. A heavy sense of anticipation settled over us as the lawyer, Mr. Hathaway, stepped forward and opened a worn leather briefcase. I felt my pulse quicken. Silence suffocated us, voices murmured as he extracted a stack of papers tied with a faded ribbon. My heart thudded in my chest. I glanced at my cousins, each wearing an expression somewhere between sorrow and grief. It felt wrong to watch them eyeing each other as rivals in an inheritance game. I had always been overlooked, the shy one standing off to the side. They teased me about being too serious. None of that seemed to matter now. I realized that this moment could change everything. Not all of us would walk away satisfied or untouched by what would be truly revealed. Mr. Hathaway cleared his throat. The first page revealed a surprising directive. I leaned forward, my gaze locked on the script. My uncle had written that his property, including the farmhouse and the acres of orchard, would pass to the person he believed had shown him the most kindness in his days. My breath caught when I saw that the deed bore only my name. Silence stretched across the clearing as my cousins exchanged shocked glances. A wave of disbelief washed over me. I felt my hands tremble against the fabric of my skirt. This could not be happening. Minutes passed before anyone spoke. My cousin Daniel was the first to break the silence with a laugh. He shook his head and said, "She is not family." His voice echoed across the yard as he gestured toward me. I stared at him, my mind spinning. The same cousins who had mocked my quiet nature now seemed to challenge my inheritance. My cheeks burned with anger and hurt. I tried to steady my voice when I asked why they doubted my claim. Their eyes flickered with uncertainty, but they refused to admit they were wrong. The farmhouse suddenly felt suffocatingly. Growing up, Uncle Jonas had been my closest confidant. He lived in that farmhouse for decades and invited me to spend every summer break helping him tend the garden. Those mornings spent sipping black coffee on the porch listening to cicadas feel now. My cousins visited each year, but they barely stayed more than a day before heading back to the city. They cared more about weekend parties than pruning rose bushes or collecting eggs from the chicken coop. I treasured every moment while they saw little value in that quiet life. His kindness shaped who I became as an adult. When the lawyer cleared his throat to continue, my cousin Sarah stood up, her voice trembling as she demanded to see that paper. She clutched the deed in her hand as if it burned her palm. The afternoon breeze stirred her hair into curls around her face. I watched her glare at me, her eyes blazing with accusation. Daniel shook his head in disbelief, insisting that it must be a clerical error. They conferred in hushed tones, their anger evident. I felt unexpectedly calm wash over me. I knew in that moment that I would truly honor his trust. Always my mind raced with questions. What would happen when my cousins tried to contest the will? I wondered if I had the strength to fight back. Memories of Uncle Jonas teaching me to be brave echoed in my head. I felt a mixture of fear and determination. Outside the circle of chairs, the orchard trees swayed, their leaves whispering secrets in the wind. I envisioned myself standing up for what was right, defending the legacy he entrusted to me. The weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders, but I welcomed it. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. I took a breath and stood up. Every eye turned toward me as the breeze turned pages of the documents. My cousins stared, a mix of apprehension and curiosity on their faces. I wrapped my fingers around the edge of the picnic table and forced a smile. I was about to speak, to assert my right to the farmhouse orchard. But then Mr. Hathaway cleared his throat again and held up a second envelope sealed with wax. My heart lurched. I recognized the handwriting my uncle scrawled across the front. I realized there was more to this legacy than deed. My breath caught in my throat as Mr. Hathaway broke the wax seal on the envelope, his polished cuff glinting in the afternoon sun. I felt every cousin's eyes on me, burning with a mix of disbelief and resentment. The orchard behind me seemed to hold its breath too, leaves hanging motionless on the wind. When he withdrew the folded letter, his voice trembled slightly as he began to read Uncle Jonas's handwriting. "My dearest Olivia," he read, pausing at my name. "If you are reading this letter, then you have accepted the responsibility I could not entrust to anyone else. The land you stand upon has been in our family for generations, and it represents more than property. It is a living testament to hope, perseverance, and the joy found in nurturing growth. I chose you because you understand that value. But I need you to recognize that guardianship is not a passive state. It requires dedication, compassion, and a willingness to open your heart to this place and its people." My pulse pounded. I squeezed my eyes shut and remembered waking before dawn to pick peaches with Uncle Jonas, his laughter echoing as we chased chickens through the coop. I felt tears prick beneath my eyelids. The lawyer continued, his voice even but firm. "In order to claim full ownership, Olivia must commit to maintaining the orchard according to the guidelines I outline below. First, she is to oversee the land for the next 2 years, ensuring that the trees receive proper care. Second, she must host an annual harvest gathering, inviting the community to share in the fruits and the story of this place. Third, she shall not subdivide or sell portions of the land, it must remain intact as a sanctuary for future generations. Finally, she is entrusted with preserving my personal journals, which I left in the study, so that our family's history will not be lost." A stir rippled through the cousins. Daniel spat out, 2 years? That's a long time. And what if she fails? Sarah's voice quivered as she demanded, how will she afford all of that? The upkeep alone. I rose to my feet, the grass whispering under my sandals. The sunlight sparkled in my tears, but I forced a steady voice. "I accept. I promise to honor his wishes." My heart raced, but I felt a resolve settle in my bones. This land had given me purpose and comfort. Caring for it felt like breathing. The attorney lowered his head. "Then stand where I can witness you sign the acknowledgement." He retrieved 2 copies of the agreement, each page stamped with the county seal. I walked to the folding table. Set at the edge of the orchard, every step resonating with the thud of gravel beneath my feet. Daniel lunged forward, his face red with anger. "You don't get to sign until we contest this. I'll see a judge first." He snatched one of the copies, tears of fury in his eyes. Sarah wrapped her arms around him, her tears betraying her frustration more than any words could. The others murmured in agreement, their voices a chorus of outrage. I steadied my breath, recalling Uncle Jonas's lessons about patience and kindness. He taught me that conflicts could be eased with honest communication. "Daniel," I said softly, "please, you're only hurting yourself. Contesting this won't restore the summers you never stayed for. All I ever did was listen and learn here. I hope one day you'll see why this place matters." He paused, the deed trembling in his hands. I thought I saw the flicker of regret in his eyes before he turned away, crumpling the paper. A hush followed, broken only by the sighing breeze through the orchard rose. Sarah stepped toward me, her voice softer now. "I'm sorry, Olivia," she whispered. "I was always jealous of your bond with him." I wrapped my arms around her, the late afternoon light bathing us in a golden glow. "I know," I said. "I've missed having you here." Mr. Hathaway cleared his throat. "Miss Parker, if you would," he said. I approached the table and took the pen he offered. The metal felt cool against my skin. I signed beneath my full name, feeling the paper stiff under my hand. When I finished, I exhaled as if I'd held my breath for a lifetime. He handed me the signed copy and explained that the other would remain in the county records. As I tucked the paper into my satchel, a sense of finality washed over me. I was no longer just Olivia, the quiet curator. I was now the steward of my uncle's legacy, bound by promise and love. My cousins drifted away in small clusters, voices low and bitter. I watched them retreat toward their cars, the gravel kicking up small clouds of dust. The orchard lay before me, its rows of fruit trees stretching to the horizon. I inhaled deeply, tasting the warm scent of earth and ripening fruit. I remembered how Uncle Jonas used to say that land could heal as much as any person. At that moment, I believed him. I felt the weight of responsibility on my shoulders, but also the thrilling spark of purpose. This chapter of my life was just beginning, and I would nurture this place. The morning sun glowed gently over the orchard as I stepped onto the porch of the farmhouse, my heart pounding with anticipation. Today was the first annual harvest gathering Uncle Jonas had stipulated, and the community members were already arriving. I felt a tremor of nerves flutter through me. I was no longer just curator or quiet observer, but a steward entrusted with a living legacy. The dew on the grass sparkled like tiny jewels, and I took a deep breath of crisp autumn air, determined to honor his memory. Tables lined the edge of the orchard rows, each laden with wicker baskets of apples, pears, and late-season peaches. A wooden sign I'd painted the night before bore the words, Jonas Orchard Harvest Festival, in cheerful letters. I adjusted my cardigan and smoothed my skirt, trying to calm my racing thoughts. In the distance, I could see the barn door swinging open. Volunteers were setting up hay bale seating and a small stage for a local folk band. As people meandered through the trees, greeting neighbors and curious passers-by, I felt a warm glow of pride. Mrs. Hernandez from down the road admired my apple display and asked whether I'd chosen the new Honeycrisp variety myself. I explained how Uncle Jonas had nurtured that single graft years ago, and how I'd propagated it alongside the heirloom reds. She nodded appreciatively, her eyes shining, and slipped a homemade pumpkin bread into my hand. My cousins arrived in a dusty SUV, awkward and hesitant. Daniel climbed out first, arms folded and jaw tense, while Sarah hovered behind him, clutching a thermos of cider. My chest tightened. Would they disrupt the festival as they had challenged the deed? But their faces softened when they saw the laughter and warmth all around them. Children ran between tree trunks, faces painted with leaf and acorn designs. I stepped toward them with a gentle smile. "Hey," I said, voice low but steady. Daniel stared at me, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Thank you for coming," I added. He hesitated, then nodded, looking away. Sarah approached more confidently, setting the cider on a nearby table. "It smells amazing," she said, voice genuine. I realized then that by sharing this place, I might heal the rift that had nearly torn our family apart. The band struck up a lively tune, and I guided my cousins toward a hay bale seat. We watched as friends from town sampled cider, sampled cheeses crafted from the neighboring dairy, and drifted between laughter and storytelling. For a moment, I forgot the weight of the deed and the obligations. I was simply Olivia, sharing a place I loved. The wind rustled overhead, and the orchard itself felt alive in celebration. I excused myself and disappeared into the farmhouse, where Uncle Jonas's study still held his journals. I ran my fingertips across the leather-bound tomes, careful not to disturb the handwritten pages. In his final entries, he'd written about the importance of community, resilience, and honoring the past by investing in the future. I felt a surge of gratitude for his guidance, and slipped a small journal of my own into my bag, a collection of my dreams for the orchard's coming seasons. Back outside, I joined the crowd on the makeshift stage. The folk singer strummed her guitar as I approached the microphone, the midday sun warming my face. My voice wavered at first as I introduced myself and recounted how this orchard had shaped me. I spoke of Uncle Jonas's laughter among the trees, of peaches warm from the sun, of lessons learned in quiet moments. The audience listened in respectful silence, some wiping tears from their eyes. When I finished, applause rippled through the crowd. I felt tears prick beneath my eyelids, but I held them back, smiling broadly. A hush fell, and then people began to cheer, voices rising in a joyful chorus. I realized that by opening my heart and this land, I was forging connections that transcended blood alone. The orchard belonged not only to me, but to everyone who found solace beneath its boughs. As the festival wound down and volunteers began stacking empty baskets, I wandered through the trees with Daniel and Sarah at my side. The afternoon light gilded the leaves, and the sweet scent of cider drifted on the breeze. Daniel kicked at a fallen apple. "I was wrong," he said, voice soft. "I thought this was just property. Now I see why Uncle trusted you." I laid a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," I said simply. Sarah smiled, eyes bright. "I'm proud of you," she added. I felt warmth flood my chest. The tension that had hovered between us for months seemed to lift, carried away on the same wind that rustled the orchard. Beneath the trees, I understood that forgiveness tasted as sweet as any fruit. Later, as dusk settled and the last of the guests departed, I stood alone by the picnic table where it all began. I unfolded the deed and gazed at my name in elegant script. It no longer felt like a burden, but a promise, one I would nurture with every breath. The county seal glinted faintly in the fading light, a reminder of the trust placed in me. I whispered a quiet vow to Uncle Jonas, promising to guard this place and its stories. A solitary cricket began its song, and fireflies flickered through the orchard. I closed the deed and tucked it safely into my jacket pocket. The farmhouse windows glowed behind me, and I knew that tomorrow I would rise before dawn, just as I always had beside him. The path ahead would have challenges, storms that might uproot young trees, financial strains that demanded creativity, disputes that tested my resolve. But I felt ready. In the counsel of his journals, the laughter of neighbors, and the soft rhythm of the orchard, I found strength. I turned toward the farmhouse, the lantern light guiding my steps. As I walked, a single apple fell at my feet, its skin gleaming like a ruby. I picked it up and cradled it gently, the fruit of labor and love. In that moment, I understood that true family is built on kindness, dedication, and shared memories beneath swaying branches. With a smile, I raised the apple to my lips and took a bite. The sweet, crisp flavor filled me with hope and joy. The orchard had blossomed once more under the care of its new steward, and so had I. This was my home, and my heart was rooted here, deep in the soil Uncle Jonas had tended with love. And as night settled on the orchard, I knew his legacy would endure, growing stronger with every seed we sowed together.